This is a reading of Global Politics, Origins, Currents, and Directions, 5th and 4th edition. Chapter 1. Global Politics, the Discipline and its Theoretical Foundations. Let us not imitate the historians who believe that the past has always been inevitable, and thus suppress the human dimension of events, by Raymond Aron. If everyone's strategy depends on everyone else's, then the Hitlers determine in part the action, or better, reaction, of those whose ends are worthy, and whose means are fastidious. By Kenneth Waltz. Breaking the powerful bond among men, states, and war in international relations theory, feminist approaches offer a normative standpoint from which to construct alternative world orders. By Jackie True. On the menu: complexity, insecurity, convergence, and divergence. For those of us interested in war and peace, globalization, climate change, poverty, and inequality, human rights, gender discrimination, racial and religious divides, criminal acts, and criminal inaction, the study of global politics has it all, and more. Global politics is engaged with enduring debates over the essence of human nature, the origins and development of societies, the interaction between economics, politics, and culture, and the causes and impacts of change. It is a subject replete with frustrating constraints and sobering limitations, as well as an example of breathtaking progress and unexpected opportunities. It is also a subject enriched with human stories of tragedy, despair, compassion, and hope. This textbook is designed to introduce you to this inherently broad and complex field of study. And because all students of global politics make key decisions about how to proceed in their quest for greater understanding, we hope this textbook will help you make these decisions with full awareness of the range of issues involved. This first chapter is intended to introduce you to the discipline and provide the theoretical foundations necessary for the further pursuit of the subjects we highlight in subsequent chapters. As individuals, our relationship with global politics is an interactive one. At the most basic level, it is unlikely you would be alive and reading this text if we had experienced a full-scale nuclear war. At the height of the Cold War, such a fate seemed entirely plausible to many experts in the field, and it is possible that nuclear war could become a predominant threat in the future. For example, there are concerns that the tearing relations between Russia and the United States are leading to a new Cold War. Tensions between India and Pakistan could result in war between these two nuclear-armed states. And the rise of Chinese military power and the possibility of an increasingly antagonistic relationship between Beijing and Washington could raise the profile of nuclear weapons and the strategic and military balance between these two powers. Finally, international crises over North Korean and Iranian nuclear weapons development could lead to military action against these countries. All of these possibilities remind us that nuclear weapons are far from irrelevant in global politics. Nevertheless, today we are more immediately concerned with the threats posed by economic crises and destabilization, wars between and within states, climate change, and environmental deterioration, the spread of infectious diseases, terrorist acts, and military responses to them, access to safe food and water, and many other global issues that threaten lives on a daily basis. Of course, the impact of these issues is felt differently depending on who we are and where we live. For example, changes in world oil or food prices will have different impact on a wealthy person in Alberta than an impoverished person in Haiti. On the other hand, some threats to human security strike people regardless of income or location. Pandemics like HIV and AIDS, and infectious diseases such as severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, can attack without discrimination. Although some people have access to better healthcare than others, and billions lack adequate access at all. Of course, you need not be a professional diplomat, corporate executive, or social activist to interact with global politics. Even our mundane, everyday decisions impact the world economy, environment, and political landscape. The statement is as true for someone living in Canada as it is for someone living in Germany, Pakistan, Uganda, Peru, or Micronesia. Although within and among these countries, the range of choice available to any given individual, and the relative impact that choice may have, is remarkably varied. Furthermore, we are constantly absorbing impressions and images of global politics, and James Derderian reminds us that many of these come warped in presentations, bundled in ideology, edited by the media, warped by official stories. Anyone who boarded an airplane after September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks in the United States, experienced a much higher level of airport security than existed previously. However, for people of Arab origins, the attacks have often also meant an increase in discrimination, ethnic stereotyping, and racial profiling. In short, we're all part of global politics, although our lived experiences are unique. Though some observers lament the passing of the good old bad days of the Cold War or the bipolar era, see Chapter 2, things were hardly simple then either, as Chapter 3 indicates. However, there is no doubt that the sheer volume of contemporary issues and concerns makes the discipline a particularly challenging one today. Studying global politics can seem overwhelming because there is so much to learn, so many issues to address. This places a great deal of importance on the theories, frameworks, and models used to analyze and understand developments and trends in global politics. We argue that the two simultaneous trends have emerged as one of the central paradoxes of the last decades: convergence and divergence. While political, economic, technological, and communications integration, labeled globalization by many, is taking place, so is political fragmentation in the form of separatist movements, competition for scarce resources, religious animosity, and other sources of conflict. This concept is not a novel one, and many other authors have touched on these apparently contradictory trends. While it would be simpler for all of us if either convergence or divergence clearly prevailed, we have to deal with the confusing fact that the two are happening simultaneously. While it is obvious that there are military conflicts underway in many parts of the world, the effort to encourage trade and expand telecommunication systems continues unabated. The horrors of genocide during World War II provided the impetus for establishment of a universal human rights regime to protect individuals from persecution conducted by the state. Yet massive crimes against humanity continue. To varying degrees, ethnic minorities within many states continue to feel insecure in political systems dominated by others, whether it be the Quebecois in Canada and the Anglophones in Quebec, the Kurds in Turkey, Iraq, and Syria, or the Kurds in Turkey, Iraq, and Syria. Efforts by minorities to protect their culture and gain political influence and even formal independence can spark confrontation and conflict. For example, indigenous peoples around the world continue to struggle for political and economic equality and recognition, often encountering political resistance or outright repression from governments. As you read this text and follow world events, you might look for evidence of convergence and divergence in order to decide which, if either, is prevailing. Studying global politics. Global politics is a complex and often surreal congruence of physical and intellectual power, geography and natural resources, political structures, formal institutions, transnational networks, and competing ideas. It is populated by personalities as varied as spiritual leaders such as the Dalai Lama, business leaders such as Bill Gates, and politicians such as Stephen Harper and Barack Obama. Behind the personalities, large numbers of foreign ministry officials toil in relative obscurity on a broad range of international issues, and activists and specialists working for a variety of non-state actors seek to influence policy and implement change around the world. Commonly, the study of international relations, or IR, has been considered part of a larger field of political science. And most political science departments have international relations specialists. However, many universities have moved toward a much more explicitly interdisciplinary approach by granting degrees in international studies or international relations. Students of business, medicine, law, geography, history, economics, and many other disciplines need a solid background in international relations to better understand their own disciplines. It is not necessary to label them political scientists to achieve this, though most of the theories advanced to explain the complex phenomena of IR are derived from political philosophy and political science. A basic education in IR can also reveal the extent to which global politics impacts on a wide range of occupations and human activities. Most large-scale businesses are engaged in some form of international activity. Many foreign firms hire domestic nationals to work in their branch companies. Increasingly, many young people are traveling across continents to work or study abroad and are finding opportunities to learn and teach languages and establish transnational careers. Still others are working with non-governmental organizations, NGOs, such as humanitarian aid agencies, or as journalists or international lawyers. Regardless of one's eventual path, it will likely involve contact with people in other countries. Learning about your own country's foreign relations is a great place to start. Beyond the impact of unemployment opportunities and careers, there are other reasons for today's student to study global politics, not least of which, and here we reflect our own bias without apology, is the sheer excitement of studying politics at the international level and learning more about how it affects a wide range of human activities. Every day, newspapers, television, and various online sources carry news items, documentary features, and discussions on a bewildering array of events happening around the world. Indeed, knowledge may be power, but it must make sense to be of any use. Many Canadians are from immigrant families, and they are concerned about life circumstances of family and friends in other parts of the world. Many travel to far-flung destinations and need to have a solid educational foundation to help them adapt to new environments. While studying IR is no substitute for direct experience, it does advance one's understanding of the context in which other states and people exist. Profile: Canada and global politics. In 2011, Canada had a population of 33,476,688, according to the National Census. The second largest territory in the world, Russia has the largest, and the 10th largest economy, according to the International Monetary Fund. Canada is in an enviable position in global politics. It faces no traditional military threats to its territory or political independence. Possesses a virtually unequaled standard of living, and is largely free of the violent conflict that characterizes many states. However, this position is no excuse for complacency. Canada depends on a generally peaceful and stable international order for its physical security and economic health. The Canadian economy is heavily dependent on trade. In particular, trade with the United States, the destination for approximately 70% of all Canadian exports. And Canada, along with the United States and Mexico, is a member of the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. Beyond trade, Canada's foreign policy emphasizes the maintenance of international peace and security and making contributions to international institutions, select multilateral military operations, such as in Libya in 2011, democracy, promotion, human rights, and human security, arms control and development. The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 had a considerable impact on the security of Canadian borders, coastal zones, and airspace, and led to a major Canadian military commitment in Afghanistan for many years. Canada is a significant diplomatic actor, and it belongs to many major international forums and institutions, including the Group of 8, G8, the Group of 20, G20, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the Commonwealth, la Francophonie, and the United Nations, to name only a few. Successive Canadian governments have been strong supporters of multilateralism because within international organizations and coalitions, Canada can at least have a voice and some expectation of influence. And yet, Canada's close proximity to the United States often overshadows all other concerns. In 2003, Canada's decision not to play an active role in the Iraq War presented a serious challenge to Canadian-American relations. While changes in governments do lead to changes in Canada's position on international issues, for the most part, Canada's foreign policy has remained remarkably consistent. Back to main text. To some extent, all academic disciplines suffer from what we call the irrelevancy disease. In many cases, academics prefer to rely on highly abstract theoretical thinking, which many students find difficult to relate to in their daily lives. While some of the theories found in the discipline seem rather abstract at first glance, they can reveal patterns of historical behavior, raise interesting questions about current events, propose solutions to serious problems, and even challenge prevailing assumptions about the nature of global politics. Ideas and knowledge generated from theoretical thinking enable us to critically evaluate the position and rationales of governments, political leaders, and orthodox explanations of events. It helps that the application of IR theory has become more diverse than ever, as the study of the discipline itself has become increasingly global, and scholars outside Europe and North America add their voices and perspective to the literature. Furthermore, ours is a dangerous world filled with a great deal of human suffering, and many people want to make a difference. Perhaps by working with intergovernmental organizations, IGOs, and non-governmental organizations, NGOs. In many locales, civil wars, famines, harsh structural adjustment policies, chronic malnutrition, epidemics, pollution, and environmental degradation, illiteracy, and many other hardships make life especially challenging. Though working on the ground in these elements can be very fulfilling, it comes with unique dangers, as we learn from the experience of Nancy Malloy, a Canadian Red Cross nurse and a specialist in hospital administration. A resident of Vancouver, she joined the Red Cross in 1987 and took her first international assignment in 1990, motivated by a personal desire to help alleviate the suffering in war-torn areas. She worked in 5 war zones over the next 6 years, in Ethiopia in 1990, Kuwait in 1991, the former Yugoslavia in 1993, Zaire in 1995, and Chechnya in 1996. But on the night of December 17, 1996, gunmen broke into a Chechen hospital complex and killed 6 Red Cross workers, including Miss Malloy. A person need not be a ruling politician to be a hero in world politics, nor to be a victim of its vicissitudes. Profile: individual actors on the stage of world politics. Sergio Vieira de Mello was born in Rio de Janeiro in 1948. He joined the United Nations in 1969 while studying at the University of Paris. In the course of his impressive career, Vieira de Mello served as a UN Assistant High Commissioner for Refugees, Under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, and Emergency Relief Coordinator. For a short time, he was the Special Representative of the Secretary General in Kosovo, and he also served as UN Transitional Administrator in East Timor. On September 12, 2002, Vieira de Mello was appointed the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. In May 2003, he was asked by Secretary-General Kofi Annan to take a 4-month leave of absence from his position as High Commissioner to serve in Iraq as his special representative. It was there that Sergio Vieira de Mello was tragically killed August 19, 2003, where the UN headquarters in Iraq fell victim to a terrorist attack. Following the tragedy, Kofi Annan appointed an independent panel on the safety and security of UN personnel in Iraq, and work continues to assure that UN personnel are protected in such circumstances. Back to main text. The interdisciplinary yet divided discipline. Formally and according to academic convention, the field of IR is divided into several subfields, or what some prefer to term subdisciplines. In this way, IR scholars can break an enormous amount of material and topics down to more digestible sections for investigation and analysis. For the sake of brevity, we will assume that the study of IR has 4 major subfields. International relations theory is a body of literature that seeks to define and explain the nature of the international system and the behavior of the actors within it. International security has traditionally involved the study of conflict and war and attempts to prevent or control it. Recently, many international security specialists have adopted a broader agenda, examining topics such as ethnic and religious conflicts, the proliferation of weapons, and the link between the environment and security. The study of international political economy has grown as issues such as trade, finance, debt, poverty, and economic crises became increasingly prominent in international affairs. Finally, the subfield that examines institutions such as the United Nations is generally referred to as international organization and focuses on instruments of cooperation such as the establishment of institutions, regimes, and agreements among states, groups, or individuals, and the development of international law. This division of the fields into subfields is admittedly arbitrary. Some would argue that other subfields exist, such as gender studies in IR, foreign policy analysis, international ethics, development studies, or global ecopolitics. Yet others would argue that such a large overlap exists between the subfields that to separate them is parochial at best and misleading at worst. Provided that we are aware of these objections, however, the divisions allow us to conceptualize the overall project of the study of global politics. Moreover, and this will become increasingly obvious as you read this text, those engaged in this project benefit from the collaboration of a large number of specialists from other well-established fields in the social sciences and humanities, including experts in comparative and domestic politics, world and local history, economics, geography, psychology, sociology, and anthropology. When we move beyond the descriptive and analytical into more prescriptive areas, we engage in normative work, which writers are as interested in putting forth their vision of how the world should be as they are telling us how it is. Normative projects reflect moral and ethical judgments, and often seek to demonstrate how ethics inform the actions of world leaders and diplomats. Some scholars argue that it is misleading to separate the analytic from the normative, since all investigations have their own biases, and all theories have their value laid in assumptions. Explicitly, normative work borrows heavily from the vast literature on ethics and philosophy, and ventures into questions concerning the just causes of war, the true meaning of human rights, religious differences, and environmental values. Finally, in this technological age, scholars and students also borrow knowledge and insights from the applied and natural sciences, such as physics, earth and ocean science, chemistry, biology, computer science, robotics, and genetics. In short, students of global politics must be interdisciplinary in their approach to issues, but also capable of practicing the synthesis of ideas and information. The discipline is divided further by differences over what primary level of analysis should demand our attention. Three main levels of analysis exist: the individual level, the state or group level, and the systemic level, although this rough division is often to dispute. The individual level and the systemic level, although the individual level of analysis focuses on the decisions of individuals and their perceptions, values, and experiences that motivate those decisions. Generally, it emphasizes the role of political leaders, for it is often assumed, perhaps erroneously, that these individuals most influence the trajectory of world events. While it is clear that powerful leaders, such as Napoleon and Hitler, changed the course of history, they could hardly have done so alone without the right conditions to aid them. The state or group level of analysis focuses on the behavior of individual states, which is often attributed to the form of government one finds in a particular time. We'll return to the debate over democratic peace theory later, but the argument here is that liberal democracies do not fight wars against each other, and thus the explanation for war may be found through analyzing different political modes of governance at the state level. Of course, it is also necessary to look within states to determine which groups are influencing foreign policy. For example, free trade agreements are supported by the industrial sectors within states that will benefit most from lowering restrictions on trade and their products, and opposed by labor groups and others fearful of the impact on jobs and competitiveness. At the systemic level of analysis, the actions of states are seen as the result of external influences and pressures of them in relation to their attributes or position in world politics. In other words, the nature of the environment or system in which actors find themselves largely explains their behavior, and the capabilities and resources the actors have at their disposal establish the range of options they might have in any given situation. This leads us to an age-old debate within the social sciences concerning the relative causal weight assigned to systems and actors, otherwise known as structures and agents. Does the structure of the system predetermine the actions of the actors, or do humans shape the events of their own accord? Many people today view this dichotomy as a false one, forcing us to reduce complex interactions to two essential forces. Rather, one can argue that continual interaction occurs between the individual and group or state units of action, and the structures within which they operate. In the political world, each influences the other, although limitations exist as to how much influence can be projected by two units into their environment, and the environment onto units. For example, a state such as Canada cannot expect to be a dominant influence in the current international system, since it has a limited amount of power and is effectively overshadowed by the influence of its southern neighbor, the United States. However, in certain areas such as peacekeeping and humanitarian assistance, notable Canadians have made extraordinary contributions to multilateral efforts. Though the modern state's extensive ties to the international system limit its ability to take autonomous action, they provide opportunities for individuals to exert influence beyond their own country. When we examine the behavior of actors within a system, as political scientists, we are often most interested in discerning their relative influence. We seek to identify the dominant actors. Most interested in discerning their relative influence, we seek to identify the dominant actors, be they states, socioeconomic classes, organizations, corporations, or individuals. However, this identification is but half the story, for every form of dominance or control generates opposition. Thus, we seek to identify and explain the motivations of counter-dominant actors, which could include the Ogoni resisting oppression by the Nigerian government, anti-globalization activists protesting the World Trade Organization, the people and social groups involved in the Arab Spring uprisings that began in 2010, the ambitious entrepreneurs introducing innovative products to the global market, or the environmentalists opposing large-scale energy development and the destruction of habitat. However, it is too simple to say that dominant actors are conservative and support the status quo, and counter-dominant actors are progressive and support positive change. After all, neo-Nazi groups in Europe and elsewhere would certainly consider themselves counter-dominant actors, as would the National Rifle Association when it opposes anti-small arms regulation at the international level. Each sphere of human activity differs, and since the political playing field is neither level or stable, the question of just who is dominant and who is counter-dominant is not amenable to an internal formula. To further confuse the issue, it might be argued that the influence of some actors will be greater than that of others in times of social upheaval, and thus power relations reflect not only deep-seated structures of influence, but also the unique social circumstances at specific moments in history. We also have to be careful regarding our use of the terms power and influence. The concept of power is central to the study of political science, but it is also one of the most contested concepts in the discipline. Power has both hard and soft dimensions. Hard power refers to the material capabilities and the ability to achieve desired outcomes for the use of military force or economic resources. Hard power is still frequently used today, as demonstrated by the American-led military assaults on Afghanistan and Iraq, the multilateral military intervention in Libya, and the sanctions imposed on North Korea and Iran. In contrast, soft power refers to social influence and the ability to persuade others through the creation of sound policy proposals, moral and ethical leadership, compelling cultural ideas and symbols, and innovation and creativity. Neither hard or soft power is distributed equally throughout the world, and this inequality has an important, if not decisive, role in the history of human relations. However, the possession of superior materials or social power does not guarantee a preferred outcome for those that wield it. The United States did not win the Vietnam War, nor has it been able to resolve the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Palestinian people. But the Asian structure debate, noted above, continues. Should we focus on the power of states per se, or the power of a larger structure or system, such as the capitalist world economic system, where the soft power of prevailing ideas becomes even more important? Such scholars argue that the hegemony is not just about military or economic power, but also the gradual acceptance of orthodoxy in the realm of ideas. For example, globalization is often described as an inevitable force with no alternative. Is this true, or have most governments and populations simply accepted it as such? Ultimately, this is one of the many analytic questions students need to answer for themselves. Profile 1.3 Canadian political leadership, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, 1919 to 2000. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was Canada's Prime Minister from 1968 to 1979, and again from 1980 to 1984. While he was always occupied with matters of national importance such as the separatist movement in Quebec, and constitutional questions, he was also very visible on the international stage. Early in his term as Prime Minister, Trudeau halved Canada's commitment troops to NATO. He became a friend of Fidel Castro despite the American embargo on Cuba. His government recognized the People's Republic of China in 1970. At one point, and against widespread public opposition, Trudeau allowed the United States to test cruise missiles over Canadian soil, Yet he later undertook an international peace mission that saw him meet with world leaders to discuss disarmament. Although he was often controversial and his initiatives were frequently criticized, Trudeau was respected for his intellect and his commitment to peace and social justice. Abroad, Trudeau was known as a charming and noble statesman. He famously described Canada's relationship with the United States as sleeping next to an elephant, and often worried about the threat America posed to Canadian sovereignty and independence. Thousands of Canadians paid tribute after his death in 2000 during the last train ride home and a large public funeral in Montreal. Below, back to main text. Below, we discuss some of the most prevalent basic perspectives that have been generated by international relations theorists. However, keep firmly in mind the disciplinary contributions and methodological divisions discussed above. Some have even suggested that we have moved into a world of post-international politics, an age characterized by the decline of long-standing patterns, leaving us uncertain about where the changes may be leading. However, an unmistakable continuity exists. The international system remains fundamentally competitive, as different states, economic players, and ideas battle to secure or advance their interests or their dominance. Convergence and divergence continue their long dance. To gain even a cursory understanding of all this, we need to impose clarity, and this is done by referring to various theoretical perspectives we have outlined below. The end. All for today, I guess.